So the group asked me to come to you guys today and just talk about economic development. That's a pretty broad topic. We could probably have 4 or 5 meetings on that, but today my focus is really going to be on how we focus on economic development. I'm going to look at our plan of work for this year just to see and let you see where or how we focus on economic development, the 4 or 5 different areas, go through some of the tools that we use, talk about the recruitment piece of our business. That's a big piece that everybody's always interested in. How do we recruit? How does that cycle work? And again, some of the tools, and then wrap up looking at some of the figures from 2012, just so you guys can get an understanding of how much activity our organization sees and how that relates to actual staff hours and how our staff dedicates time. And then we'll talk a little bit out of those same numbers as to where we are to date this year in 2013. Just to start off, the mission of our organization is to facilitate business opportunities for chamber members and create job growth through economic development initiatives. You guys are aware that we are the Alliance. We have a Chamber of Commerce side of the house and an economic development side of the house. Economic development is kind of almost a misnomer now. I mean, it's all economic development. Economic development encompasses a lot of the work that the Chamber is doing as well. The economic development side really is going to focus more on job recruitment. Industrial recruitment is really probably more of a proper term for the majority of what we spend our time doing. But to kind of get into economic development, where we focus our time and efforts, this is our plan of work of 2013. So this is what our organization is focused on the year. It's broken out into categories. You guys have a copy. It looks a little different, but this is the same information that you guys have in front of you. Broken down into various sections. So you've got workforce development, people attraction, new business development, and existing industry development. Those are what we call the 4 pillars of economic development. And creating job growth, those are really the 4 areas that we focus on. Workforce development, of course, if you're going to have a company that is expanding or looking to come to your company or community, excuse me, you want to make sure that you've got an ample workforce in place that's going to be able to meet their needs. If they're going to come in and hire 200 people, they want to make sure that they can easily get the number of people and the skill that they have. We are in a fortunate situation in our community. We have the South Central Tennessee Workforce Alliance, which encompasses Maury County and the surrounding counties, but it is a great organization. I'm not sure if they've come and spoke to this group before, but I would encourage you guys to look at having them come and talk about what they do. So our main focus with workforce development is to make sure that any information that we collect, we are passing along to them as we're meeting with businesses, and they're giving us information on the workforce, on things we can do to improve, passing it along with them, and then they do a great job of educating and training our current workforce and making sure that we're meeting those needs. People attraction, it kind of plays into workforce development to make sure that our community is an appealing place for the younger professional workforce or generation. I don't know the statistics, but if you look at the number of people who are getting to retire in the next 10 years versus the number of people entering the workforce, it's heavily skewed. So something that we're focused on in the community is making sure that we have a community that is attractive to that new workforce, to make sure that we'll be bringing those skills in. So again, we're going to do some PR to make sure that there's some positive news getting out about our community, things going on, make sure the local community is educated on some of the things going on. I mean, the Herald does a great job, and we've probably solidified that relationship over the last 1.5 or 2 years to make sure that is continue to get out there. A couple other items on here is a community health checkup. We've taken the first portion of this. We've had one performed by our organization, and we have the results. We're still kind of working through the best way of how we can use those results to improve our community. The 2 biggest pieces then with job recruitment is your new business development and existing industry development. New business development is what everybody thinks of when you think of economic development or industrial recruitment, because that is the sexy piece. Everyone wants to know who is the new mystery company coming to town, how many jobs are they bringing in. It's great news. But the existing industry development, I want to talk about that a little bit more. That's probably where 85% of job growth comes for any community. So, which is your local companies who are looking to expand, bring in new products, hire new employees. So we're out there meeting with the employers in town to make sure that they have the workforce they need, that they have the tools that they need, whether it be from a utility standpoint or just to make sure that we can connect them with local individuals, state individuals, or something to help them expand and make sure that they're successful. Because again, a sheet we'll go through earlier or later will have some job numbers on there, and if you look at the amount of existing industry on that, it's very substantial. The other piece, new business development, industrial recruiting, it's a lot of time spent there, but your results are a lot lower. You know, you're going to see hundreds of leads a year, but you're only going to see maybe 1 or 2 projects a year if you're lucky. So there's a lot more time and effort spent in new business development, but it doesn't result in as much as existing industry. So some of the things we're doing for the new business development, over the last year or two, you saw probably some stories on the I-65 Business Park. We explored the option of doing a park along Interstate 65. It was a successful study. We identified 3 or 4 sites. However, you know, we've run into some issues when it comes to, you know, the funding of the park. You know, you're looking at a situation where, you know, you're looking at a $20 million project, and finding someone who's ready to commit to that has proven difficult. So we're trying to work around and find some alternate solutions to that, where we can identify some properties that are going to be advantageous for our community to know about and to have, and figure out a creative way to at least obtain some type of control for those properties and get them ready, as ready as a publicly owned piece of property may be, so when you have a mega project come in or a large project come in, that it's ready to go. And that getting that ready is certifying a site, or having a phase 1 environmental done, having a soil boring reports, those types of information completed. The retail attraction strategy, you guys saw a lot of this late last year into this year. We had that completed. We're using that information to actively try to recruit some retail, and then that kind of plays into the livability piece, which is the people attraction. So, you know, it all kind of comes into play here a little bit. The Mount Pleasant spec building project, we're getting very close to getting that completed. We are at the final stage, hopefully getting the financing in place. So what we will have is a shell building or speculative building in place in Cherry Glen Industrial Park that's going to work to help attract additional companies to the town. Several other items here. I definitely don't want to go through this point by point, but just a couple of other things on there. Investor relations is any organization that has investors should always focus time on, is keeping those investors informed and educated, and making sure they're happy with their investment in your organization. And then project management, that's really what the rest of this presentation will kind of get into, is you know, working these projects from start, hopefully to finish, and how much time is really dedicated by our organization into doing that. So let's just look at kind of the typical, if you want to use the word typical, project life cycle from start to finish. So we're going to receive, our office will receive a request for proposal, or a lead as we call it. These are going to come from various sources. The state of Tennessee will take leads and generate them down to local communities. TVA has an economic development arm that they work to go out and recruit leads and put them down to communities. Middle Tennessee Industrial Development, we have people who walk into our office. They are, you know, out looking on their own. And then you've also got brokers. So the private brokerage firms will usually have companies that are out, so they're looking for potential properties for their project. So we're going to receive that request for proposal. We're going to answer whatever questions they have. That can easily be, hey, I'm looking for a 50,000 square foot building. What do you have? Or I'm looking for a 50,000 square foot building. Here's a 300 question questionnaire that is due in 48 hours. So that's, you know, on average, we'll spend about 8 hours responding to an RFP in hopes that we'll make that first cut and maybe get a site visit. So the way we look at a proposal, and you'll see that here in the next few slides, is these companies are usually looking for reasons to eliminate a project, not a reason to move it forward. So you want to make sure that you're getting them every piece of information they're requesting, and you're getting it to them accurate. So after we submit that, they're going to say, okay, we like your site, let's come look at it. That site visit's usually the first site visit is usually a quick in and out visits, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour. What they're going to do is they're going to come in, and they're just going to look at the piece of property you gave to them, compare it to what was on that piece of paper, and make sure that everything matches up. You'll typically have some discussions in there. They're going to ask some questions, and they're going to start getting into much more detailed questions on that property, such as, what's the sewer capacity? Can you supply me with 600,000 gallons of water a day? Can you handle 640,000 gallons of sewer? How much gas can you get to me? That's what's going to develop from that first site visit. They're going to go away. We're going to get that information for them. We're going to provide that information to them. They're going to analyze it, they're going to cut some more sites, then they're going to come back for a second site visit. That second site visit is usually when we're going to spend a good half a day or maybe a solid day with that company. We're going to first listen to what it is they want to see and experience in the community. So obviously we're going to go look at this property, but then we're going to make sure that we're connecting them with the appropriate people within the community to learn about our community. We would bring in the Workforce Alliance to make sure that they can bring all the information regarding the community's workforce. We're going to tour them around. If they have questions about the school system, we're going to bring in the school system to talk to them. If they have questions about the hospital, we're going to bring in the hospital. It's really everybody refers to it as the dog and pony show. We're going to connect them and really sell the community and work to sell that community. That's going to hopefully result in more questions, much more detailed information from everything they discuss. They're going to hopefully take that. Maybe they'll come back for a third site visit, or maybe they're close to making a decision there. We've got a project right now that we've been working for 18 months, and they've probably been to visit us at least 18 times in that time. So, the more they're coming to see your piece of property, going back with questions, getting that information, and keep coming back, that's what we want to see, because that means we're getting close and we're making that short list, and hopefully you're going to be able to chalk that up as a win. Then down towards the end, you'll see the final incentive negotiation or finalizing the project, making sure that everything is in place. So they're going to look to make sure that they can meet the appropriate timeline, that they can meet the appropriate finances, and they can get to market when they say they can get to market. Then hopefully the decision and the announcement. So they don't all work like this. Sometimes they're going to be very quick, 2 or 3 months. Sometimes we're going to spend 18 months, 2 years courting a project, and all in hopes that they'll say yes and come to our community. But it all kind of goes back to the original request for proposal. We want to make sure that we give them that. So if we don't get them that and don't respond to that initial request, we're never going to see them, because they're never going to know about us or move in. So when we take our requests for proposals or responses very seriously, obviously, if you've been to our office, we have a look and feel within our office. Purple is within our logo. There's a lot of purple, and our logo is around. That continuity goes right into our request for proposal and all of our information that we put in front of any prospect. At any given time, they can look at whatever piece of paper or document is in front of them and know that they are in Maury County. It consists of Spring Hill, Mount Pleasant, and Columbia, and continuously, just that continuity. So when they pick up our RFP out of a stack of thousands, it's going to look more professional and catch their eye. That's going to be the first impression that you make. So over here, I think I've got a laser pointer here. So see our cover sheet. This is we're going to put this on every packet that we send out. It's going to be the first thing they see. Laser's broken. So anyway. So it's got to have the project name, but it looks neat, pretty looking map. I've kind of grown fond of maps. It's interesting that I've got one hanging on my wall now. The map is almost art now, but it looks good, but it's really serving a function. They're immediately seeing, here's where we are within the state of Tennessee, and here's where we are within the middle Tennessee portion, and here's your transportation network, your roads. So how are you going to get your trucks in to bring your product or to bring your raw materials in? How are you going to send them out as your finished goods? So they can immediately see that. This will repeat several times throughout the proposal. And then the second page usually consists of more of a larger picture. We're working with a lot of international companies right now. Somebody from China may not know where Maury County is, let alone they may not know where Tennessee is and within the scheme of the United States. So we're going to first get them acclimated to where we are, and again, where we are with the community and transportation network. I think my batteries have gone dead. That's what's going on. So I'll go old school here.
You need a clicker?
It's okay. I can do it. Next few pages again. This isn't everything. This is I call this an overview sheet of Maury County. This isn't everything our community has to offer, but this is a very high level. Here's a little bit about our transportation. Here's all the interstates. We have rail. We have these 2 rail carriers. Again, our location, everybody wants to know how far, if are you within a day's drive of X number of people. A little bit about the workforce, the number of available workforce in the community, and then just some bullet points about our livability. Then once we've got them acclimated to our community, we're going to start getting them acclimated to where the site is, the picture over here on the right. This particular property for this request for proposal is the Penske Building or Crown Enterprises off of Saturn Parkway in Spring Hill. So again, you've got an outline of the county, the transportation network within the county, and where they're located, so they can easily see, well, yeah, you told me you were a mile from the interstate. That's right. That's right there from the interstate. Again, you're seeing our logo, and the maps are even the same color, and everything's moving through. Then we're going to tell them about the property. Oh, you got some extra batteries up here? There you go. We're going to start informing them about the property. Again, this is just the basic information the company wants to know immediately to figure out, is this building going to work for me or is it not? Most of the buildings and properties that we show are privately owned, and therefore usually have a realtor or broker representing that property. That realtor or broker, 9 times out of 10, has their own sheet very similar to this with all the same information on it. But what we do, again, to keep that look and feel, and what we are going to send out from our organization, is we take that sheet, use our marketing software, our design software, and transform it into a sheet that's very similar and again matches our color and look and feel. Are we good? Yeah, all right. Again, just some information is your location is over here, property size, price if there is a price, and then we're going to talk about utilities, just a high level, here's the utilities servicing the building, location to interstate, location to Nashville, location to airports, and then just various things about the building that would be maybe not make a lot of sense to you and I as far as why they want to know this, but to a company looking, they want to know how many doors, what are the size of the doors, can you get the utilities, how thick are the floors, can you handle the amount of weight that I'm going to have stacked up on these floors, various things. And then we'll continue to show them a little bit more about the property. This particular one is a flood map here, so obviously they're going to be interested in, is my property ever going to flood? What's the risk of a flood here? So we can easily show, here's the outline of the property, here's the building. The dark is the floodplain, and the light blue is the 100-year floodplain. So again, they can see while some of the property has the potential to flood, it's likely not going to reach your building unless it's a true, a 500 or 1,000-year flood, which, given their names, don't happen very often. Again, another visual for the utilities. This is just going to show the utilities connecting to the building, and the sizes, just so they can see that it is there. And I was talking about the questions that we typically receive. I pulled this from a different RFP. This was for Cherry Glen, the industrial park in Mount Pleasant. Again, the company simply sent us a spreadsheet and said, fill this out, send it back to me. Unless the company specifically requests to me, I want to receive this back in the exact same format that I sent it to you, which sometimes they do. If they've got 500 questions and they have it in a spreadsheet, they have that for a reason, so they can bring it back and plug it into their system and do their analytics and pop it out. But we will take the time to, again, list out those questions, put it in our format, a continuous packet that they're going to get back. They've still got the information they have, but it just looks a lot more professional. And this one I just like to throw in there for fun. Anybody tell me what that says? Now, gosh, a year and a half ago, we had a Japanese prospect come in, and we were fortunate enough to have enough time to do a little bit more prep work. So we had our marketing firm take that sheet that I showed you several slides back and translate it into Japanese. So they're not gonna probably take all this information to heart, but you're walking in a room, you've got a translator, you're in a country you're not familiar with, you're in a community you've probably never even thought you'd be in before. This is at least something that's close to home and welcoming to them, and we use this several times now, so we usually get a positive reaction when we use something like this. So that's kind of how we respond to the RFPs and everything. A little bit of the project life cycle. just talk about, again, where our manpower is dedicated. This is based on 2012 statistics. We haven't officially compiled the 2013, but I got another slide that'll kind of show us to where we are. So if you look at 2012, we received 109 requests for proposals or leads into our door. That's going to be existing industries looking to expand or new businesses coming. So we prepared a packet similar to what we just went through. It may have more or less information depending on what they are. We allocate an average of 8 hours to respond to each one of those RFPs. So if you're looking, that's 2012, 872 staff hours that we spent responding to that. And again, average of 2.1 per week or 9.1 RFPs that we're answering a week in 2012. So a good amount of time. That resulted in 15 projects. What we consider transitioning from a lead to a project is going to be that first time they visit our community, they're actually coming to the community to visit, we consider that a project. So we had 15 of those in 2012. A little bit, just some statistics for those who like it. That's about 13.7 return from the 109 that we saw. When we took those projects, we then additionally spent 721 hours approximately working those projects. In 2012. Some of the projects we may have only spent a couple hours with. Some of the projects may make up over half of that number. Again, so that's about 13.9 hours per week or 60 hours a month that is just spent on preparing a response to their questions, planning a site visit, and actually hosting them in town. Last year that was split between 2 staff members, Brandon and myself. This year, to date, it's just been me doing these types of numbers. So if you look back on that plan of work, there's probably some things that weren't accomplished this year. That's why, because this is number one, is spending time getting these companies in here. And looking in 2012, we documented 5 wins within our organization, resulting in 774 jobs. It's about a 4.6 return from the 109. That's a decent number for economic development. Again, you're not going to see 80% return on your leads that come in the door. Document that you guys have in front of you, other than the plan of work, is our wins to date or jobs creations to date that have been that our organization has had direct involvement with. There's been other companies that have come to the community, other small businesses, stuff opening up. We don't necessarily have our hand in every project. That'd be impossible for our organization to have a hand in everything. So these are ones that have actually worked with our organization. Just some information on it is where they located, the average wages, and then we've broken down, you've got announced numbers and then to date numbers. So a company comes in, let's look at Clarksville, for instance. They recently had Han Kook come in and say, we're going to hire 2,000 employees. Well, those 2,000 employees aren't going to be there day one. They're going to start out small and get in there. So we try to do our best to track. Well, they announced they're going to create 500 jobs. Here's where they are now, and try to go back and track where they are. So you see the jobs that they announced and where they are. This document is as of August 30th. We're working to update this currently. And so we take that payroll and run the same thing. So each company is going to have a impact of, say, $5 million worth of annual payroll. Again, that's going to hit when all employees are there. So we try to track their annual payroll that they have based on their employees they have. Again, just to talk a little bit about this year, these are the numbers that we track, are currently tracking. We've seen 112 leads, so a little bit more than we saw last year. We still got a few weeks to go, but we've seen 29 projects. So we've actually seen a lot more of those leads result in a project. So that number is, 15 to 29. So we've seen a lot more of that, and we've had about 38 site visits from the company. So if you're doing some of that math, I think that's a little over 880 hours, I guess 890 or so hours spent by the staff on the leads projects. But I think the number I was coming up close to was about 600 to 700 hours that we've spent this year, maybe the low 6s on projects. So if you combine those two numbers together, our organization is spending about 30 hours a week right now just working this project funnel, not out there conducting existing industry interviews, trying to find new site. So there's a lot of work, again, that goes into this one piece, and that was kind of the illustration today. I think I've given a high level of what we do. I'm hoping it sparks some good questions, and we can have some conversations about what our organization does. And
well, I think we can tell through your presentation that the Alliance does an excellent job of getting and responding to the RFPs. What do you see to be the biggest obstacle in getting past that RFP part to get to the project section of y'all's work? What's the big, either for existing or bringing in new? Maybe it's a different answer for both.
Sure. You know, I mean, there's not one specific thing. It's really going to be project specific. If you have a project that, and there are a lot of those out there right now where they want to be in a metro, really close to a metro, I mean, that's going to, you know, depending on how close they want to be, that's going to rule us out. Proximity to interstate. Right now, we have a few sites, mostly existing buildings that are within 5 miles of the interstate. Our county-owned park is about 16 miles from the interstate, which for some projects that's fine. For other projects, it's not. I mean, it really just depends on the specific project. But I mean, we can never have enough inventory of product, and by product, I mean available sites and buildings, because I mean, the more variety you have, the more you're going to catch. Jimmy? Sean?
So kind of the next level down when you have projects and then they come here. I'm curious if you have any kind of estimate about how many jobs maybe we have missed out on because we don't have a site on I-65 ready to go.
You know, we could get some numbers for that, but a lot of times, at least from an RFP to a project, you're not going to get any feedback as to why you weren't selected. You will typically get more feedback if they've come to your community and visited with you a couple times and then don't make the cut. You know, again, it varies. It's going to be price. Sometimes incentives will rule us out. Like I said, we've got a lot of privately owned property that's great property, but it's expensive. These private individuals are looking to make a cash profit. With the publicly owned land, such as Cherry Glen, the community looks at a profit in a different way, the job creation, not putting cash back in the community coffers for the sale of land. So if you have a community out there that's got a piece of property that's close to the interstate and we have one that's competitive, but theirs is publicly owned, we're in a different ballgame because we can't, they may be giving them that piece of property for free. We don't have that ability because we don't own that piece of property. Jimmy?
Well, in regard to jobs announced, jobs today, pretty much the weakest area is on this chart is Maury City. And we all know that whenever we get our car announced, or 2 cars announced, that problem will take care of itself. What is going to be the next level of once the car is announced and we have our job situation at X dollars, X jobs, what will be the pieces and parts estimate?
So as regarding the automotive?
Tier 1, Tier 2.
Tier 1, Tier 2. Let's see, I'm thinking we've got a few existing industries that are contemplating expanding, and we've seen several projects come in the door. Now, whether they're directly related to General Motors or not, that's unclear at this point, but they are automotive related.
It could be related to automotive.
Absolutely.
Because if we are now becoming such a Detroit or the South kind of thing, it doesn't make a difference whether Maury County or not.
Sure.
They're here. We have to build them to participate with them.
Yes, and automotive suppliers, supplying is a different world now. You've got a supplier now who is not just going to locate right next to General Motors and supply only General Motors. They're going to try to find a location where they can get General Motors business, but then they can also go get Volkswagen business, make a similar product for them. Typically, it's a 6-year contract for a supplier to supply for an OEM, which is General Motors' facility as an OEM, original equipment manufacturer. So, you know, they're not going to come in and build a facility. They're going to come in and lease for years, because in 5-6 years, they're going to have to rebid for that contract to make that product, and they could very well lose that product or contract to a smaller bidder. So they're going to try to diversify. And again, we are in a strategic location because we have General Motors, but you've also got 65 taking you down to Alabama with Toyota and Mercedes and all of that, and then you've got Volkswagen and you've got Nissan. You know, there is some strategy there. When I was touring an existing supplier here back in April, I think they get their order that morning. and it goes out the door that afternoon. They don't necessarily know what numbers they're going to be doing tomorrow until they get that call or whatever from General Motors. So 8 hours or less, definitely.
Of the 100 plus requests for proposals we've seen last year and this year, overwhelming majority of those represent automotive industry?
Here recently, over the last 5 months, yes. Overall, not so much. The two trends that we're seeing a lot of is automotive and foreign investment. I would say 75 to 80% of every RFP that I've gotten, at least in the last 2 to 3 months, probably actually let me expand that out to 4 to 6 months, has been some type of foreign investment, whether that be European or Asian. Just a sec, Barry.
Those RFPs
Uh-huh.
that you get, do they come to you through the state? Do they come to you because they sought you out? Or
It depends. It depends. Yeah, most of them come through the state or TVA. We actually, and in the Nashville Chamber, which is ironic, but the Nashville Chamber has their partnership 2020, which focuses on the 10-county Nashville region. So it'll be likely those three. You typically don't see. Now, we do get direct calls from people who are just out looking for our location for a specific reason, and will reach out to us directly, but they aren't necessarily going to have a formal RFP. They're just going to pick up the phone and we're going to talk through it. But from a proactive approach, in this industry, you typically don't see a local community going out and recruiting directly to a company, because they're not going to pay attention to you. You're not going to get in the door. I mean, I could probably hire somebody and pay them $150,000 a year just to go out and do that, and not see a return on that. But where you do see your time focused, and where we do plan to focus that time on once we can get our staff situation back in, is going out and developing relationships with the site selection consultants. Your big projects, the ones that are typically going to be 500, 1,000, thousands of jobs, they're going to hire a third-party consultant to come in and do their analysis for them. So we go out to where they're located in Dallas, Chicago, Ohio, and they'll see you. So you walk in the door with a portfolio of what your community has to offer, so they know that. Maybe it'll click the project they're working, but you also have that personal relationship so when they are there working the project, you know them, and you know how to approach them to get what information you need to from them. So that's really where local communities will take more of a proactive stance as opposed to going knocking on, some large manufacturer's door. Did you have a question, Scott?
Yeah. One of the concerns I have is as GM becomes more active, we're falling back into that GM automotive mentality again, and we're putting all our eggs back in that basket again. What is the Maury Alliance doing with economic development to diversify the different kinds of jobs we're looking for? We've got Maury Regional, we've got TriStar here now, we've got the insurance agencies up north. What are we doing to diversify Maury County? Because it seems like on the capital and jobs investment, we're getting into that $26,000 to $32,000 a year job slot right there again. And over the last 10 years, our per capita income has fallen almost $4,000 for our households. So what are we doing proactively to turn that around, to start to recruit companies that may be smaller numbers of jobs, but higher paying wages for our citizens?
I mean, you're right. The per capita income has come down. It's actually increased over the last 2 years by about an average of 5%, which is starting to see that move into the right direction. But we are seeing a lot of automotive, but we are seeing a lot of non-automotive. Of probably the 6 or 7 major projects I have right now, one is directly automotive. The other one is I thought they were automotive, but really when you think about it, their product is used on much more than the automobile. So you initially think it's automotive, but it's not. But there's a lot of additional stuff or additional sectors out there. Now, what we're doing from an incentive standpoint, absolutely, when we incentivize a company to come here, we look at their wages. A company that is paying above the per capita income, is paying a nice average wage, as you've seen with some of the recent projects we work. We're going to incentivize heavily, or more heavily, to entice them to come here.
Kind of things like when we get down to the wire with a company, and maybe it's between us and like 1 or 2 other communities, and then we don't get it. Are there things that we can do to improve our community, whether it's education, skilled workforce, Maybe what are the major things that you see that we can do as a community to make ourselves more attractive?
Sure, sure. You know, I mean, there's tons of things. Usually if it comes down to you and one other community, they've already established that you have the workforce, that you have everything that they need. It's probably going to be an incentive decision or a random, the CEO really likes the feel of this community. So, I mean, that does kind of tie in there a little bit, potentially the livability. I mean, you know, you can never have enough livability in a community. I mean, especially with foreign companies that are going to come in, a lot of times they're going to relocate, you know, 10 to 15, not just employees, but their families in order to get the facility up and going. So they're going to be concerned on, you know, how is my family going to acclimate to the community? Are they going to be accepted? Is there going to be stuff for them to do? You know, is there accessibility to entertainment, shopping, all of that? So.
One of the things that we need to change about our livability so that you can be more successful in recruiting these higher paying jobs that Scott referred to.
What are they?
Yeah.
You know, it's just going to be it's really, I mean, there's many things. You know, I mean, they're always going to look at your education system. I mean, that's something that there's always room for improvement in your education system. Again, having retail accessible within the community, having a community that is visually appealing. You know, I mean, our office is located right downtown, so I always make it a point, if I have the opportunity to take them to lunch, I'm going to take them over to Puckett's or Square Market and actually walk them through the downtown so they can see, you know. So again, you know, the looking. Right.
That's what I was going to say. I bet a lot of the stuff that was on the retail study is a lot of the same stuff.
I mean, again, it plays in. This goes back to the whole, you know, yes, it's a Chamber of Commerce and economic development, but I mean, it crosses the gambit there, you know.
Is the Maury Alliance this year or in the future going to take a more proactive stance with our county public school system to work with them on the basis of trying to establish, if we're going to recruit X amount of companies to come in with these specific skills, are we going to work with the South Central Development Agency in Northfield and Columbia State and our public schools to kind of create that feeder system of students when they're graduating, if they don't want to move on to college, they want to go into jobs? Is the Alliance going to take a more proactive role with our school system in trying to push that initiative forward?
I mean, we will definitely be more proactive in the process. I mean, the schools is a big issue. It's bigger than the Maury Alliance by all means. It's not something that we can come in and solve, but we will definitely speak from the business standpoint of our community and make sure that the information and push is out there from the business community, for sure.
Can I just, this is not a question, this is a soapbox comment.
Sure.
In relation to that, because I was on the board, on the Alliance board, when we purposely took the Education Council out, and I think it was driven by the fact that, like you just said, there's 30 hours a week spent on pursuing that, and the education issue is an issue that every citizen of Maury County should be involved in, and that just from a manpower standpoint, we did not have it was not that I think the board didn't feel strongly about that. It was just that there weren't enough hours in the day to pursue leads and to try these other things in the school system. But from a practical standpoint, from a service industry standpoint, we are just looking to hire of 180 employees, the vast majority of them, we need a high school diploma or a GED, and we can't find folks who are finishing their high school diploma or getting their GED, local kids. And that in my mind is not it's not, the Alliance is deeply invested in that, but I don't think the Alliance I don't know how much of a role the Alliance can play in addressing that.
I mean, I think what we can do is work with our businesses and members to provide that information and pass it along to help propose a solution potentially.
Well, you mentioned the contrast of the auto industry and then the foreign investment. Is that foreign investment kind of focused on an industry specific?
No, the industry is advanced manufacturing, which is not a specific by any means. I mean, they're all going to be manufacturing, and that's probably a result of a few things. You know, the euro is still pretty strong compared to the American dollar, so you can get a little more bang for your buck here. But you're also seeing companies who may be operating in Mexico who went there For cheaper labor, that trend is going away. I mean, you're having a hard time finding labor down there, and you're having to pay them more. And so when you were offsetting that, the high cost of transportation back and forth by cheaper labor, that's going away. So you're seeing some of that onshoring coming back, I think is what's playing a lot into that. Yes.
You talked about the importance of workforce development, but I'm curious as to whether there are any initiatives that you're undertaking to help expand managerial level development for the homegrown businesses so that they can expand.
Sure. That's probably going to fall more into the chamber side of what we do, you know, working with the small businesses. I know we've done a few seminars here on how to manage people and working with that. You know, that's really what we're doing now. But again, if a need presents itself for a program such as that, we would absolutely look into it. Anybody else? All right. Yeah, well, thank you guys. It was a pleasure.